his thoughts, his vision, whatever he has shared with the people, they are still relevant. So he is with us in his ideas, in his thoughts, and he is truly a great leader. He has not inspired not only us, but inspired billions of people, I would say, globally, and very important leaders who are following his teachings, his thoughts, his philosophy. He has not only taught us how to take the greatest challenge of, let's say, the attaining the freedom in a non-violent way, but he has also taught us how to improve our personal life, how to improve the life of, let's say, the community around us, how to improve the social life, how to take the country forward. And there are many, many things more he has taught us. So on this day, we pay our rich tribute to him for not only inspiring us, but the freedom he has given to us, the ideas he has given to us. As a true followers of Mahatma Gandhi, everybody is following him. Everybody is following him. We have to imbibe his thoughts into our work, into our action, whatever we do, and in our, you can say, the social or public life. One thing I would request all of you, one thing which he has very firmly believed, that is truthfulness. So we should follow this truthfulness to our profession, to our institution, to our organization, to our peers. So if we follow this, certainly we are going to have a much better life, a peaceful life, a productive life, and a very social, I would say, the cohesiveness in our, can say, the profession, in our organization, in our places where we live. I will also be failing in my duty if we do not pay a respect to Lal Bahadur Shastri ji. He was also born on 2nd October. He was also a simple person, true follower of Gandhian thoughts, and he has really given a new kind of life which people can follow, simplicity and high thinking, and he has followed throughout his life. The best vision I can think of is given, and the shortest one and the most clear one, it was given by Lal Bahadur Shastri ji. Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. You can just, in two kind of words, you can just imagine what was the vision, what was his priorities, and he has truly followed those priorities. So friends, we are fortunate that these two leaders, they have guided the country. They belong to us and we belong to them. We have to follow them in every kali, whatever we do in our life. Friends, let me welcome Professor Vasant Gandhi. We would like to have you here, sir, physically delivering a lecture, but the situation does not permit. But this medium, at least this platform, is equally effective. We can see each other and we can interact with each other. Thank you very much, sir, for your kind generosity for the Institute, for agreeing to deliver this lecture, as well as guided us as member of our QRT team. Friends, you all know Professor Gandhi, but we are almost in touch almost last 20 years. And as a student of economics, I have been reading economics. And he is one of the, I would say, the professionals who has really contributed in a significant way. You know his contribution, but couple of things I would like to say. So he is PhD from the Stanford University. He also worked for the International Food Policy Research in the time when hardly there were few Indians working for that institute, that too in Washington, DC. And he has many more contributions institutionally as well as professionally. Most of the time, I think almost your career, sir, you spent at Indian Institute of Ahmedabad, Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. And you have started the agribusiness program there. It is one of the best programs, in fact, considered globally. In terms of your research work, you have really followed the Ghanaian thoughts, village institutions, institutional economics. And in fact, my association with Professor Gandhi started with when we were just having interest in the institutional economics. One seminar we organized at NCAP then, it was 2002 or so, and we published a book based on that. And he participated in that, and I interacted with him how to organize that. So in some other context I was looking at, so several things are said which are really different, related to watershed, marketing reforms which we are doing, agro-processing sector, all those things, number of natural resource management everywhere. If you look at it, certainly it's a very important one. But Professor Gandhi has taken this topic in a more, I would say, the serious way, and made really a path-breaking contributions. I've been following his work on participatory irrigation management and several other things. So he has not only followed these institution kind economics, how we can strengthen the village level, farmer level, say institutions, but at the same time, in his approach also, he has followed these thoughts, and in his professional conduct also, he is always very positive, very encouraging, and always there for the students. You cannot recall even a single incidence when he has taken any professional thing or any other activity we generally normally do. We leave lecture and attend some important meeting, but he has given the highest priority to his students. Lecture very seriously he has taken, so that is very important. And otherwise also, personally you can just see he is always calm and quiet and doing his work. So thank you, sir, for your time. And for us, it is really in the ICR meeting I have mentioned, those who are interested, they can join us. I hope Mrs. Jain has sent link to those other institute also. But we feel really happy that a Gandhi will be speaking on the Gandhian thought. So welcome you, sir, to the institute, this program, and certainly my colleagues will be benefited from your thoughts. Thank you very much. Now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suresh Pal, for those kind words, more than kind, very generous words. I feel really humbled, to talk about the towering figure of Mahatma Gandhi today. And as Suresh Palji also said, that today is also Lal Bahadur Shastri's birthday, who really made a huge contribution to agriculture, particularly, with his simple statements, simple ways. I have put together some a collection of his facts and thoughts, which I will bring it up and show it to you. and if you allow me to just share my screen with you, just tell me if it works all right.
It will work.
Okay, screen sharing is disabled, is it? No? Can I share the screen? No? Is it possible to share the
Yeah,
screen?
it will be possible.
It is possible, sir. It is possible.
Mrs. Jain, kindly.
Okay. Yeah. Can you see my screen now?
Still not, sir.
Can you see my? Can you see my screen now?
Not, sir. Still not. It's not visible.
Sir, we have given rights for sharing the screen. You should be able to share. Maybe it takes some time.
Okay. All right.
It should be instant. There, it will ask for something, that you want to say or allow, maybe something.
Yeah. So it did ask. Okay. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah. You're right. So I have not clicked that. Yes. Share. Yes.
Yeah. It has come. It has come.
Yeah. Now you can see. No. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Very good. So let me say at the onset that I'm no expert or authority on Mahatma Gandhi's thoughts, his writings and so on. But I have read quite a lot about him now. Also, I have read his autobiography. My grandfather was a professor and department head at the Banaras Hindu University. Was very well known to him. And when Mahatma Gandhi used to come to Banaras, he used to stay with my grandfather. And so my father has had first-hand meeting interaction with Mahatma Gandhi. Though I wasn't there at that time, I have none of that. But from my father, I used to hear about what kind of a person he was and what was discussed and so on. And my grandfather used to work as a secretary as well. Whenever his own secretary was not well, he used to work as a secretary as well. So I have some links, in that way. Also, I have studied agriculture, at every level, bachelor's, master's, PhD, and during this I have traveled all over the country, lived in the villages, worked in the villages, surveyed in the villages. So I have, some experience of that kind to understand, what his thoughts are and what his thoughts mean. So based on that, I have put together something which I hope will express, some of his really deep and outstanding thoughts, about the villages and about the development of villages and agro-industry development and so on. He was a pioneer, in so many ways, pioneer of rural development in India, pioneer of agro-industries in India, that it is hard to imagine somebody contributing to every sector of the economy and so many different disciplines of thought. So first, to begin with, some facts, some simple facts, about Mahatma Gandhi, just to refresh our memories, to update ourselves. So Mahatma Gandhi was born in a Hindu family on 2nd October 1869 at Porbandar in Gujarat. His father, Karamchand Uttamchand Gandhi, was Diwan, Chief Minister of Porbandar state. On 4th of September 1988, he left for London for higher studies. And then he was a civil rights activist in South Africa from 1893 to 1914, fighting against color discrimination. So a lot of his early learnings on civil rights and the way to fight for civil rights were formed in South Africa. He returned to India in 1915 and joined the Indian National Congress, and he became the leader of the Indian independence movement against British rule. Mahatma Gandhi inspired civil rights and freedom movements, not only in India, but across the world. The title Mahatma was given to him in South Africa in 1914. In India, Mahatma Gandhi was fondly called Bapu and Gandhiji. He was imprisoned on several occasions for many years in South Africa and India. Mahatma Gandhi wore simple yarn clothes, woven with yarn handspun on a charkha. And he was a strict vegetarian and undertook fasts for protests and self-purification. Mahatma Gandhi's policy of non-violence gave people a way to fight for freedom and their rights without being violent and subject to violence. He proved to the world that the greatest of battles could be fought and won by applying peaceful methods. He was a great follower of truth and non-violence and supported it throughout his life. His birthday, 2nd October, is observed worldwide as the International Day of Non-Violence. So these were some of the facts of his life, which I thought let me start with before I move into the village and rural sector and what his contributions were there. Regarding his connection with the rural sector, Mahatma Gandhi traveled throughout the length and breadth of the land with eyes wide open and having mixed with millions in the villages. In 1934, Gandhiji resigned from the Indian National Congress over his differences with other leaders on the purity of ends and the means. He established the All India Village Industries Association at Wardha and devoted most of his time towards reorganization of Indian villages. Gandhiji started experiments in rural lifestyle, such as revival of village crafts and agro-processing industries, village cleanliness, diet reforms, and others, so that villages could be developed as ideal surroundings to live in. He also concentrated on the removal of untouchability. And he continued to keep his center as Wardha, where he had established this association for the rest of his life. So his connection with the rural areas was very deep and very extensive. Now, something on the kind of vision that he had of the village and the villages. And one of his outstanding statements was that, I would say that if villages perish, India will perish too. India will be no more India. So much was his belief in the villages and the development of the villages. And he said that the revival of the village is possible only when it is no more exploitative. So when the villages are freed of exploitation, only then they will get revived. He said that industrialization on a mass scale will necessarily lead to passive or active exploitation of the villagers. So this is what he saw, and this is what his very serious thought was, that the kind of industrialization that we have will matter quite a lot with the well-being of the villages. We have to concentrate on the village being self-contained. He was a great believer of that villages should be as much as possible self-contained, so that the exploitation is not there. There is no objection to villagers using even the modern machines and tools. So he didn't have any objection to that. only they should not be used as a means of exploitation. So they should not be used as a means of exploiting the villagers, either in the supply of this tools and technology, or in the utilization and the benefits that are generated out of that. So if we keep the villagers and villages out of exploitation, we don't exploit them, then they will prosper. That was his belief. India has 750,000 villages scattered over the vast area, 1900 miles long and 1500 miles in breadth. And he said that the real India lives in the villages now. People are rooted to the soil, and the vast majority are living a hand-to-mouth existence. Millions are living in enforced idleness. So that's the other thing that he saw there, was that there was a lot of idleness there. Millions are living in enforced idleness, which lasts at least 4 months in a year. And therefore, he concluded, and he said that the Indian peasants require a supplementary industry. The most natural is the introduction of the spinning wheel. So at that time, what he felt the most natural was the introduction of the spinning wheel. The spinning wheel can solve many economic problems of India at one stroke. So that he had a great belief in that. We have to tackle the triple maladies which hold our villages fast in its grip: the want of proper sanitation, deficient diet, and inertia. Inertia, what he meant was they are not interested even in their own welfare. So they have to be brought out of these in order to develop and prosper and improve. Villages have suffered long from neglect by those who have had the benefit of education. Those who have had the benefit of education have chosen the city life. So that is one major problem, that they are not devoting time and energy to contribute to the development of villages. And therefore, through his life, what he wanted to show was that the village movement is an attempt to establish healthy contact with the villages by inducing those fired with the spirit of service to find self-expression in the service of the villagers. So particularly those who wanted to serve, he wanted them to put their energies in the service of the villagers, which he felt was the most important. He said that the difficulty with the youth is perhaps that she has gone to the village merely to earn living or to enjoy without the spirit of service behind it. So what he said was that what he deeply believed is that with patient effort, patient effort will show that villagers are not very different from city dwellers, and they respond to kindness and attention. With the growth of Village Connect, the leaders will find it necessary to tour the villages and establish a living touch with them. Everyone can make a beginning by making the villages cleaner by their own labor and remove illiteracy to the extent of their ability. So these were the two major contributions that he felt should be made by people who want to serve the villagers: make the villages cleaner and remove illiteracy in the villages. A gram is a Samagra Gram Sevak must know everybody living in the village and render them such service as he can. The man who runs a village oil mill. So for example, what about the agro industries that are connected with the villages? And on this, his thoughts were that the man who runs a village oil mill has money, but his strength does not lie in his money. The strength lies in knowledge, which gives a moral standing and strength. Everyone then would seek advice of such a man. No. So the village enterprises that are there, their strength, he said, is not the money, but the knowledge that they have because of through which they interact with the world. No. And this knowledge they must pass on to the villagers, no, in order to improve their standing and strength and knowledge base. No. The villages must be surveyed and a list prepared of things that can be manufactured locally. For instance, oil and oil cakes, hand-pounded rice, honey, toys, mats, handmade paper, and so on. No. And if this is done, the villages will hum with life and exhibit the immense possibility of supplying most of their own wants and of that of the cities and the towns in India. So this was the transformation that he was envisaging, no, and wanted to see in India. The villagers should develop such a high degree of skill that articles prepared by them should command a ready market outside. When our villages are fully developed, there will be no dearth in them of people with a high degree of skill and artistic talent. Today, the villages are dung heaps. Tomorrow, they will be tiny gardens of Eden, where dwell highly intelligent folk. The reconstruction of the villages along these lines should begin right now. He says that in my writing on Swadeshi, I have shown how many aspects can be tackled with benefit to the starving millions, both economically and hygienically. For example, if rice can be pounded in the villages after the old fashion, the wages will fill the pockets of the rice pounding sisters, and the rice eating millions will get some sustenance from the unpolished rice instead of will get some sustenance from unpolished rice instead of pure starch which polished rice provides. So this connect, with the villages, or connect with the way that things are done in the villages, is something that he considered very, very important. And the more that we have this, the better it will be for the villages as well as the city folks. If the public opinion was strong, it will make rice mills an impossibility by simply insisting on unpolished rice and appealing to the owners of the rice mills to stop a traffic that undermines the health of a whole nation and robs the poor of an honest means of livelihood. So here is the concept that he is talking about, that what is good for the villages, is also good for the city dwellers, and the more we engage in this, the better it will be, for both the sides, the rural and the urban. He says that you have to be rural minded before you can be non-violent. And to be rural minded, you have to have faith in the spinning wheel. The spinning wheel is something that is symbolic, and to have the faith in that is very important to be rural minded as well as non-violent. Today, the cities dominate and drain the villages so that they are crumbling to ruin. My Khadi mentality tells me that cities must subserve villages when the British dominance goes. So not that the villages must subserve cities, but the cities should subserve villages when the British dominance goes. He says that if we want Swaraj to be built on non-violence, we have to give the villages the proper place. So here is a very, very important belief, which, as you know now, has been carried forward throughout our journey after independence by Lal Bahadur Shastri, by others, and wherever it has been ignored, you also see the consequences of that. So very, very important message there from Mahatma Gandhi. Every power machinery puts thousands of hand chakkis out of work and takes employment from thousands of housewives and artisans who make these chakkis. So here, one should remember this trade-off that is there, in the process of development, and one must choose appropriately. Moreover, the process is ineffective and will spread to every village industry. This can lead to a decay, to spells, later spells into decay of even the skills and art that is there in the villages. My idea of village Swaraj is that it is a complete republic. So again, so next is idea of the village Swaraj, is that it is a complete republic, independent of its neighbors for its want, and yet interdependent for many others, in which dependence is a necessity. Thus, every village's first concern will be to grow its own food crops and cotton for its cloth. It should have a reserve for its cattle, a recreation and playground for adults and children. Yeah? So here is his model, for the village. In my idea of village Swaraj, education will be compulsory. So you can see his great emphasis on education in the rural areas, education in the villages, education of the rural masses. Education will be compulsory up to the final basic course. As far as possible, every activity will be conducted on the cooperative basis. So again, one major other emphasis, the cooperatives, and the need for cooperation amongst the villagers, which one sees expression in organizations such as AMUL, which have really implemented these principles. There will be no caste as we have today, and their graded untouchability. Non-violence with its technique of satyagraha and non-cooperation will be the sanction of the village community. So it will follow non-violent methods, including satyagraha and non-cooperation wherever necessary. The government of the village will be conducted by the panchayat of 5 persons, annually elected by adult villagers, male and female, possessing minimum prescribed qualifications. So this was his idea about the panchayat, consisting of qualified villagers who are elected by the adults of the village. And here there will be perfect democracy based upon individual freedom. The individual is the architect of his own government. So the individual will be the architect of his own government. So again, principles such as expressed by Abraham Lincoln are contained here. Of the people, by the people, for the people. Very nobly said there. Then some of the facts from his life, which I also touched upon earlier. In 1934, Gandhi resigned from the Indian National Congress over his differences with other leaders on the parity of ends and means. He established the All India Village Industries Association in Verda and devoted most of his time towards reorganization of Indian villages. Gandhiji started experiments there in rural lifestyles, such as revival of village crafts and agro-processing industries, village cleanliness, diet reforms, etc., so that villages could develop as ideal surroundings to live in. He concentrated on the removal of untouchability also. Gandhiji believed that hand spinning, hand weaving, that is khadi cloth, was the hub around which the village industries could prosper. Like this solar-like system, he thought it could rebuild and preserve the Indian village culture. and putting this all together, the man who fought the mightiest empire in the world had also simultaneously developed and demonstrated a new way of constructive work for the establishment of a non-exploitative and non-violent social order. This was his ideal in life and a message for the mankind. So through this, we get his main message for life and for mankind. Through which not only shook the mightiest empire in the world, but also created a basis for establishment of a non-exploitative and non-violent social order, which is the soul of India, which we still go back to whenever we have major problems and crises, major questions. So those were the remarkable thoughts of Mahatma Gandhi and the legacy that he has left behind for us. From here, let me move a little bit towards his ideas about agro-industry and how the evolution has been in India, and what are the lessons that we get from this. So the development of agro-industry and industry in India has followed three phases. One was the Gandhian strategy or the Gandhian approach, which was there till around 1950. This was followed by the Nehru-Mahalanobis strategy from 1950s to 1980s. And then the modernization strategy from 1980s onwards. So let us see what each of these was and what was the logic and what were the problems that they faced. So the pre-independence Gandhi Swadeshi up to 1950, the whole idea, as we discussed earlier in his model of the village, his vision of the village, was to encourage the use of own rural products. But at the same time, his idea was also to discourage imports. And this was largely to make India less and less attractive for the British, because the British wanted to take our raw materials, process it into products, and then come back here and sell their industrial goods in India, and therefore profit both ways, in the raw material as well as in selling the product. And he wanted to discourage this, to try to stop this, and this model worked towards that. So discourage imports, also in the process generate rural employment and incomes, and through that uplift the rural masses, and bring the rural masses into the mainstream of the independence movement. So he felt that the independence movement will not have strength, will not be very successful or not be successful at all until rural masses join the independence movement. And the big numbers were also there, and this was a wonderful idea that he had. Uplift and bring the rural masses into the mainstream of the independence movement, and through that fight against the colonial rule. So everything put together, it worked as an economic model as well as a social and a political model, which was what was remarkable about it. Later on, as India proceeded further in development, there were limitations such as inefficiency of the traditional technology that was there. As the demand started rising, as the population started growing, income started growing, the traditional technology was not able to keep up with that. It could have been modernized, but it did not modernize. The quality that was being produced did not meet the consumer expectations, because the consumer expectations were also growing for better quality product now. And as a result, this model had difficulties and problems. Okay. From this, we moved on to the Nehru-Mahalanobis industrialization strategy, during 1950 to 1984, no? And this was clearly an industrialization strategy driven by Jawaharlal Nehru, who deeply believed that if India was to be a developed nation, it had to industrialize. No? And he had traveled to the developed countries. He had traveled to Soviet Russia, which had industrialized very rapidly. No? And his ideas were formed from there. Okay? And in this industrialization strategy, capital goods were required, and the capital goods sector was reserved for the large scale. So this is something that was done. But he did adopt Mahatma Gandhi's approach as well. And this can be seen in the fact that consumer goods sector was reserved for agro industries and small scale. So this was reserved for the agro industries sector. The logic also of this was that the capital was scarce, and the rural small scale industries use less capital, okay? And therefore they could work on less capital, also more labor, they use more labor and could generate more employment. So this model worked well, not only to industrialize, but also to create, to use capital efficiently and create employment, which was very much necessary in the rural areas. Okay. However, over a period of time, this strategy ran into difficulties, to quite some extent because of poor efficiency and poor quality of the consumer goods that were produced. So this was not poor. By poor efficiency, what it also means is that the cost was high, and the quality was poor, and also the quantity that was required to meet the rising demand, it could not produce. So it was unable to meet the rising demand. So this led to the crisis that India went through in the 80s and the 90s and the early 90s, leading up to the liberalization that came about, which started a little bit in 1984, but then really took shape in 1991. So in the modernization strategy that was taken up after 84 and 1991, there was liberalization. That means there was no separation of the capital goods and consumer goods sectors. It was liberalized. Anybody can start any industry without having to seek a license. Liberalization was there by and large, except for some activities. The focus turned to efficiency, modernization, and competitiveness. The focus turned to quality and the use of good technology. And the focus also turned to meeting consumer demand and attracting foreign investment. So, so this was the major change, that took place with the liberalization, and this strategy, which I'm sure you all know, which led to considerable acceleration in our economic growth, considerable acceleration in the availability of goods in the country, and a lot of transformation. Okay. But as far as agro industries were concerned, and actually industry on the whole, this often led to low contribution to employment. So it was not generating enough employment, which was very much required. And its contribution to rural development was rather weak, and was not there in many cases. Okay. So if you see, one has come quite a full circle, okay, and the concerns that were there with which Mahatma Gandhi started, the Swadeshi movement, are back again now. The concerns for employment and the concerns for rural development, and this new model of development that we have is not delivering that. Okay, and so here we need some rethinking. We need some more thought and creative thinking, and introspection to see how we can change this, and how we can see that the way that we develop, way our industrial development takes place, way our agriculture development takes place, generates more employment and leads to development of the rural areas, contributes to development of the rural areas. So that is the challenge, that Mahatma Gandhi pointed out way back, like almost 100 years ago. So those are the thoughts, in relation to Mahatma Gandhi and his noble thinking. So to conclude, some of the key messages that come out from Mahatma Gandhi's thinking and thoughts, and the experience that we have had of development is that India lives in the villages. Very important. We cannot forget that. And we have there have been leaders who have forgotten this, but they have needed to go back to that. India lives in the villages. We need to deeply connect with the villages and take care of the villagers and the village economy. So this is something that is still extremely important. The connection and the technology used should not be exploitative. So this is something that we need to keep in mind now, and should be inclusive. So here again, some of the recent changes that have been announced with respect to market reforms. Again, come back to this, saying that it should not be exploitative. That there should be a balance, between rural development and urban development. And if this is not being kept, then changes need to be made. Options and better ways need to be given to the rural folks, rural activities, agriculture, and so on. Okay. Then we need to, if we want Swaraj to be built on non-violence, we will have to give the villages their proper place. Again, very important. If we forget the villages, it is going to lead to violence. It's going to lead to imbalances like they have in many African countries and Latin American countries. Which we want to avoid. So if we want Swaraj to be built on non-violence, we will have to give villages their proper place, something that has been emphasized very much by him. Villages should have their own governance system, like the panchayat, or even better, working panchayat, which is free and development focused. Then there is need to organize economic activities in the Swadeshi way, which includes the rural society and economy in its fold as much as possible. And so the technologies may have changed, the activities may have changed, but these are still some of the models that we can look at and see. The charkha, the khadi, the village oil mills, the grain processing that was there in the villages. How one can include the rural society as much as possible in the process of development. Okay. The current model of agro-industry needs change. It is not connecting with the rural people, with the rural employment, with the rural development. And it must connect with the development of the villages and rural development. And therefore, we need to rethink this model so that the contribution to these will improve. And if this is done, we will have vibrant villages and a vibrant country. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Professor Gandhi, for a truly outstanding and enriching journey to the Gandhian thoughts. You have really educated us not only about the Gandhian thoughts, but how those thoughts, they are important today for the development of the country, development of the villages. and more importantly, you have shared these thoughts in a more, I would say, the professional manner. Generally, when we have some discussion, some lecture on Mahatma Gandhi, so general principles they are taught, discussed, but not a discussion like this professional discussion, that how these thoughts can be interpreted in a professional way, and that is what your lecture has really shown us, that really those thoughts are still important. And the recent this experience of COVID-19, it has really again re-established the importance of villages and agriculture. If they are vibrant, if they are responsive, if they are independent, so certainly they can contribute to the welfare of the people, as well as to the development for the economy as a whole. So that is really coming out from this recent experience. So thank you, Professor Gandhi. It is really indeed a great opportunity to listen to you, and I'm sure all my colleagues they have benefited from the lecture. We have recorded it. It will be posted on our website. It is also telecasted on Facebook. It will be available, and the number of viewers is quite high. I am sure this lecture will be received very well for them. Other students, mostly they look at it. So thank you very much. Mrs. Jain, you post on the lecture the entire with PPT, if you kindly agree to share, Professor Gandhi, on our website.
Sure.
So that people they
Sure.
can use it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
From all of you,
Thank you very much.
from all of us to you, a very let's say the grateful thanks for sharing your thoughts and educating us on the Gandhian thoughts and the taking towards the whole development journey of the country, particularly in agro industries and industrialization of the country. Thank you very much. Now I request Vinayak Nikam, just a word of thanks. Yeah.
Good afternoon all. Respected Dr. Vasam Gandhi, Professor IIM Ahmedabad, Dr. Suresh Pal, Director NIAP, seniors, colleagues and staff of NIAP. It is great pleasure for me to propose vote of thanks on this occasion. On Mahatma Gandhi's 150th Jayanti, it is really honor for all of us to hear about Mahatma Gandhi from an eminent person and staunch follower of Gandhian ideals, Dr. Vasam Gandhi, Professor IIM Ahmedabad. Sir, you have enlightened us about the life of Mahatma Gandhi, his philosophy, principles, vision in general, and related to village and agriculture in particular. In addition, you also highlighted the role of his ideals in different plan and planning processes in independent India. Surely, sir, this lecture would provide great source of inspiration to all of us to follow the Gandhian philosophy in our daily life, as well as for the serving the farmers of this country. Sir, we are really grateful to you for kindly agreeing to be speaker on this occasion, sparing your valuable time and give talk about these Gandhian ideals. Thank you very much, sir. I also take this opportunity to thank Dr. Suresh Pal, Director NIAP, for taking initiative and guiding us for organizing of this lecture, as well as other activities on this occasion of 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. I thank IT team of NIAP, led by Dr. Rachan Sen, Mr. Dilip Kumar, for making all necessary arrangement of this meeting. I also thank all the staff of NIAP for attending this lecture with enthusiasm. Sir, should also announce that after this lecture, we can gather at the ground floor for tree plantation. Finally, I thank one and all for making this lecture a successful event.